Welcome back to Beagle Eye Visions. We're on episode 53, Fellow Craft of the CubbyWhole podcast, and it is currently 4th of July, so I apologize if you hear any fireworks in the background, but hey, maybe it'll add to the ambiance. Welcome back. This is a kind of a long episode, so I guess we're just going to get right into it. Thank you for choosing Beagle Eye.
About religion that we have to remember when we're talking about that makes it such a hot topic issue is because we're talking about law. Who gets to be God? Who gets to be God's deputies? Who is the Most High? Who is the divine authority? It's all about the claim to the Most High. The only way that somebody can be higher than us is if we give away our power. Because there's nobody, we're all equal. But we're not equal in our knowledge, so ultimately I think it does have to be a hierarchy, but it has to be a cooperative hierarchy like a bee colony. It's about what our value system is, what we care about.
Hello, Cosmic Mind. Today is December 17th, 2021. I'm your host, Nate Cap. Welcome to the 53rd CubbyWhole podcast, where important topics are unveiled, discussed, and tested. The website for this show is CubbyWhole.com. That's CubbyWhole.com. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Minds.com, Amazon Music, Odyssey, YouTube, and much more. Okay, hope everyone's brains are rested, and I hope everyone's ready for more symbolic breakdowns of the inner self, the inner journey. We're going to start off with the very monumental quote from the Oracle at Delphi. So if you're listening to this show, I'd like you to go to the CubbyWhole website under the podcast section and go all the way down to the show number 53 if you haven't done so already. And I'd like you to follow along. And we're going to start off with this first slide from the Oracle at Delphi, which is so important to understand what this quote is saying. So it starts off by saying, "Heed these words, you who wish to probe the depths of nature. If you do not find within yourself that which you seek, neither will you find it outside. If you ignore the wonders of your own house, how do you expect to find other wonders?" And the own house meaning the inner self, okay? "So in you is hidden the treasure of treasures. Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods." So we're a reflection of the universe, right? So as we deeply know ourselves and demystify our inner self, the mysteries of the inner self, then we are able to also demystify the universe, okay? And these occult sciences that are shared in these CubbyWhole episodes, they're keys. They're keys to understanding the universe, the universe, okay? So as we understand the universe, the inward self, we're able to understand the outer world, okay? And in that quote, where it says, "Know thyself and you will know the universe and the gods," that's when it says gods, that's talking about the inner parts of the self, because we have the inner gods that are reflecting outwardly, and outward gods are reflecting inward. So as we understand the sciences of the gods, so will we understand the science of the outward gods. So today we're going to go a little further in the fellowcraft degree, the second degree. And I'm going to put a finer point on some things that I said in show number 51. And I'm going to add a lot more to what I've already covered in that episode. So, like I said, there's going to be slides, and I really strongly recommend following along with the slides. Otherwise, why even listen, you know? Because the slides are really what make the connections, at least in a more well-rounded way. Because if we don't understand these symbols, if we don't understand these tracing boards, if we're not looking at them while we're studying them, then, I mean, it's just, like I said, it's a waste of time. Now, before I get into the material for today, I just wanted to remind everyone, if you missed it last week or on the last show, I had Douglas Martin come back on the show, and it was a pretty great show. And that was show number 52. And we covered the tracing boards, the ancient Egyptian mythos, socialism, esoteric Freemasonry, and there was a lot of other stuff that we covered, but he did a really great job explaining ancient Freemasonry all the way up into the modern world. So if you haven't got a chance to listen to that, definitely make sure and go back and listen. It was a very, very awesome show. Now I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into the material for today's show. So I hope you're following along with the slides. And I'm on the second degree with the 2 golden brass pillars and the 2 initiates on the spiral staircase. And these 2 pillars that we're looking at here are Jachin and Boaz. And on the last show, I realized I said that Jachin was on the left, and I want to correct that. I meant to say it's on the right. So the pillar of Jachin is on the right, the pillar with the netted celestial orb resting on the top of the pillar, the chapiter at the top of the right pillar. And then the pillar of Boaz is the one with the earth or terrestrial netted orb on the chapiter to the left. Okay, so I apologize if anyone was confused by that. It can be a little disorienting. So this degree, this tracing board is all about the inner self. Okay, it's the symbolic internal science of self. So it's important that we understand that this board, this tracing board, is also reflective like a mirror, okay? Now, what I've learned about this tracing board in particular is the directions are actually the same as the Master Mason degree, okay? The top is the west, right? The right is the north. So the right side is the north. And then south, the south side is left. And the bottom is east. So
took care of those raiders.
If you take this board and you turn it upside down and put it underneath the entered apprentice tracing board, it's basically a reflection of that degree, okay? So you could look at the entered apprentice degree as the mind, and then you can look at the fellowcraft degree as the heart. So in, if you made it into relation of the actual human body, you could put the inner apprentice on the head and then put the fellow craft upside down on the heart. And that might help you make sense of what this is really saying, okay? And I know it's kind of disorienting, but as we learn the direction and follow the instruction, then we begin to really be able to put it all together, okay? And it takes a lot of knowledge and a lot of attention. It takes the power of orienting the imagination where it needs to go. And it took me a long time. It took me a while to really realize the direction of this second degree properly. I'm still seeing more as I ruminate on it. And, I've been looking at the 3 tracing boards, the 3 degrees. I've been really meditating on these degrees for a long time. And I'm telling you, it just blows my mind how much information is stored in these images, And there's so much that you can pull from each one, because each one holds symbols that it's just like what I was talking about with the 7 and the G in show number 51. I mean, I could have just kept going on and on and on. And I'm really leaving that up to you, because as you start to pull from these symbols and really do your own homework on these symbols, you'll find so much more than what I've covered.
I'm sorry, I never do this, but I'm gonna go check on the other dog. I think I'm gonna go see if he's okay. I'm sure he's fine. But it seems I don't want to make sure he's not by himself.
And you'll probably find so much more that I am not aware of, because there's just that much. But then as you see the patterns, as you see the similarities, as you see the parallels, that's when you really know that you're on the right path. And that is very important to understand. And that's also symbolic of the second degree, because this is all about understanding the spiral staircase. Because we don't, as we make connections and we start to really see the big picture of things, it's an unfoldment, and we'll know that we're on the right path because we'll see the patterns, we'll see what is truly speaking to us, especially if we're open to listening to the universe. And that's something I'm going to get into a little later. Now, to get back to the pillars of Jachin and Boaz, we have to remember that the pillar of Jachin holds the celestial orb, which is the symbol for the universal law or natural law. And the pillar of Boaz holds the terrestrial orb, which symbolizes free will, the ability to choose right behavior over wrong behavior. And as the student advances in this area into King Solomon's porch, okay, with the knowledge of objective morality, then the legendary winding staircase emerges. It erects, okay? And the numbers of this winding staircase are 3, 5, and 7, the odd and perfect numbers. Now remember, I said it's important to understand both the winding staircase and the spiral staircase. They're the same thing, but both words need to be understood to properly understand this part. So as the student is ready and beginning this journey up the winding or spiral staircase, faith and will is required here. It's required to begin and take on this journey of the self, okay? So faith in the self is about, it's to keep moving forward, even though we can't know what's around that bend. We can't know what will happen in our lives next, right? But if we're spiritually prepared and we have the drive, the will to keep moving forward in our journey, to keep learning and living honestly, then here, this is where there'll be the reward of truth waiting for us. The Masonic tradition states that the seeker who makes it this far, who's labored in the depths of inner knowledge to want to know the truth, who's doing the great work and wants to step into the presence of the Creator, then this means that the student will be met and paid with spiritual wages. Wages for what it took to arrive to this point. And wages means truth. Truth is the payment for arriving to this point. Okay? So the first 3 steps are associated with the plum rule, the level, and the square, or the entered apprentice, the fellowcraft, and the master mason degrees. Also thought, emotion, and action. And all 3 aligned and harmonizing with natural law. The 5 steps that follow these 3 degrees are the 5 senses which the student must master to be able to see past, okay? So the 5 senses being hearing, seeing, feeling, smelling, and tasting, and then being able to see beyond the 5 senses, be able to see beyond those 5 steps, to be able to pass on to the 7. And 5 is associated with this degree, okay? This fellowcraft degree. This is the midpoint. And the next 7 steps are made of the liberal arts, okay? They are the first 3 are the trivium, and the next 4 are the quadrivium. And the trivium being the 3-fold path, and quadrivium being the 4-fold path, both being truth discovery methods, okay? And these numbers, 3 and 4, relate to triangle and square. So triangle on top of the square being a house. That's a house of 7 points. And the number 7 is a huge, like I said earlier, it's a huge unfoldment in Masonry. It's a symbol of symbols. And since the 7 is the highest of the steps, it represents the most high, symbolically. It's the highest part of the spiral staircase, meaning most high. And this is about the spiritual symbol, the spire ritual symbol. And the corresponding symbolic place of the Most High is the Little Bear constellation. It's where all things 7 are stored safely. So safe from man's, reckless, ignorant behavior, right? So the Little Bear holds all things 7. And it's something I'm sure most of the listening audience who has listened to all these podcasts has already heard many times. And I assure you, you will hear many more times because it's that important. And that's because it's a symbolic capsule of sacred spiritual knowledge. It's the top of the celestial spiral Christmas tree. Okay? So the 7 represents the 7 Vedic chakras. And the 7 points to the gavel with 3 sticks crossed. And then there's the 7 candlesticks of the menorah. There's the 7 hermetic principles. The Elohim, which is 5 planets, and the sun and the moon. This is the 7 wanderers total, okay? And then there's 3 primary colors and 4 secondary colors as a result of light shining through a glass prism, making 7 total colors that are emanating from one pure light. And then there's 7 major musical notes. And then there's 7 crystal systems. And really the list goes on, especially in biblical texts. So the student that reaches the 7, this is where manhood is attained through an extreme and beautiful humility of self, realizing the infinite cosmic scale of the universe and realizing just how small and microcosmic we each are in relation to this insanely spectacular, grand, intelligent design, right? So realizing the 7, realizing this amazing symbol of the number 7 and all that it holds, the student finds within themselves a connection beyond what any man or any woman could ever grant. This is where we learn the glory of the capital symbol letter G, which is the ineffable name, the unspoken name. Now, I covered much of the meaning of G in show 51, but I'd like to expand on it a little further in this episode, okay? So remember, I said the capital letter G is a combination of C and 7, right? So it can also be C square. So to be able to see the square, all right? Now remember, the square represents moral law. It's where the Mason acts and builds morally, right? Well, to build is to build up, right? And the spiral staircase begins from the floor upwards, okay? So to build from the floor up is to build upright and level and morally, okay? Now, what I want you, the listener, to do is look at the capital letter G, and you'll see that it also is a symbol for a cycle. And I made a slide for this. So look for the slide that says cycles, okay? And this G, this capital letter G, it's like a circular line with a directional pointer on the end, right? And that's what life is full of, right? That's what life is. Life is a cycle of cycles. Microcosmic and macrocosmic cycles. So you have birth, growth, decay, spring, summer, fall, and so on. So when we imagine this, then we can also see that it's a 3-dimensional spiral, like the Christmas tree, right? Now, the law of cycles is a geometric mandala that conceals the eternal spirals of creation. And this is about understanding the tree of life. And that's something we're going to cover in future shows, for sure. I mean, there's so much in this symbol, G, this capital letter G. And it's geometry. Remember, I said that's one of the main things that the G represents is geometry. And that's what Freemasonry truly is at its foundation. And spiritually, geometry is the study of the harmony of the universe. So that means that the seeker for truth is a geometer. So anyone listening to this show is a geometer, a spiritual geometer. And a geometer is a mason. And a mason is a geometer. Geometry is how the student comes to understand the creator. Now remember, geometry is the fifth science of the 7 liberal arts. It teaches man to compare and measure out the terrestrial with the celestial. It's comprised of a moral and divine nature, and it's filled with the most useful, beneficial knowledge, which proves to me to be the most awesome and sacred aspects of nature that man could ever discover. So in Masonic terms, the operative art of geometry is how we measure the physical universe, like the distance of planets and other celestial bodies, and measure how big and small they are in relation. And the speculative art of geometry is how we measure the spiritual universe, such as the use of the tracing boards or the zodiac. So we can, be able to measure and map out consciousness. And it gives the student the ability to look in the inner part of the world. That's what really has to be understood, the inner part of the self, to orient the imagination with knowledge to be able to expand consciousness and build further, to expand and build further past the logical thresholds and limitations. Now, this leads me to what I call inherent spiritual tools. And there are many of these tools, but I'm not going to cover most of them on this show, but we've covered some of them on other shows in the past, so to a degree. Now, what do I mean by inherent spiritual tools? Well, first, the word inherent means built in. It means fixed or permanent. It's embedded in the fabric of creation for eternity. Okay? It's eternal. And spiritual means the growth and unfoldment of the human soul. Okay? It's about finding out the dogmas of life and transcending past them. Finding where we're wrong in life, because this is where true growth takes place. So we can transcend. So we can transcend and go find more dogma. So we can grow and evolve. And the word tools just means the instruments or implements. And some of the other examples of these inherent spiritual tools are the Hermetic principles, retrospect, and pattern recognition. And these are discoverable tools that we can use to search with, especially inwardly, to be able to see with, to be able to decode with. That's what these discoverable tools, inherent spiritual tools, are here to do once we discover them. Because it's to help us understand what we can and cannot see or address with our common dialect fully, okay? We use spiritual tools to build a strong foundation within, which is what esoteric Freemasonry is all about. And because these tools are inherent, they can't be and they can never be granted by man. Man Man cannot grant something to someone that is inherently theirs to begin with. Okay? These tools are discovered through knowledge, they're discovered through understanding of that knowledge, and they're discovered through experience and practices. Because as we practice with them, we gain the experience and we really begin to have gnosis of these inherent spiritual tools. And the individual wielder of these tools is the only authority of how and when they are used. But that's not to say that there's not a proper and logical use for them, because there definitely is. These tools are 100% understood by the science, the knowledge, and the workings of the imagination as their driver. And this is about being able to expand the imagination and consciousness, which is what I call higher imagination, which is the pursuit of gnosis. It's about the pursuit of empirical knowledge pertaining to the spiritual mysteries. Okay? The inherent spiritual tool that I'm going to cover now is green language. So let's look at the green language slides, okay? Now I know we've kind of covered this in the past, but I'm going to put a finer point on it here. And also we have to keep in mind that the Fellowcraft degree is all about green language, because G is in the middle, and G stands for green. Green is a middle frequency color of the visible spectrum.
Detected.
And this second degree is in the middle. It's the 2 between the 1 and the 3. It's the heart. It's the midpoint. And symbolically, at this midpoint of the student's journey, there comes a balance or sturdiness of the bridging between the brain hemispheres, where true intelligence begins to reveal to us a sovereign approach to how we look into things, but also a moral and holistic one as well. This is why we have to be able to understand and demonstrate our understanding of natural law or moral law at this point in this degree. This way, we're ready to receive the universal messages that are speaking to us, because the universe is always speaking. So it's here where we fine-tune ourselves, where we refine our souls, so we can see and hear and taste and feel and smell things beyond the 5 senses and the physical reality. And green language is part of understanding what this means, because each sense corresponds to the spiritual nature of our being. So spiritually, we see the unseen, such as recognizing the laws that bind us by understanding the effects and causes. Plus, seeing is also intuiting, right? It's about imagination. And we hear the coded patterns in nature. It's about paying attention closely to what truly matters. You know, paying attention to the universe, being able to hear the universe. And we taste the pure nature versus the processed synthetic world. You know, we become health conscious of information that goes into us, whether that be food or knowledge. Information, that's what it is. And we feel more when we spiritually awaken, as we become more sensitized and we're able to connect more with nature, right? And we become more sensitized to the inversions of reality. And we can smell as a sense, to be able to sense BS and what we're taught in low conscious public schooling. Because as we gain more gnosis, we gain more of a stronger sense for what is correct and what the correct direction is on our journey towards truth. So we have to be able to see, hear, taste, feel, and smell the esoteric. Okay? So that is part of going beyond the 5 senses of the physical reality. So we have to master our senses both physically and spiritually. So green language is a tool that is key to using while we search for truth.
Gary.
And it is highly, highly, highly dismissed and totally overlooked by so many people. But this language is a language of calibration. And this tool, like many tools, can be improperly used. And of course, that can and has turned many people, especially many skeptics, away from further investigation of this tool. So we have to understand that this language is a phonetic principle. It's like a word play or a pun language, but is actually important to our self-rulership, to our sovereignty. It's an intelligent alignment to balance ourselves within and outwardly, especially for those who are ready to hear and see, because when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And green language is one of man's oldest spiritual technologies. And it's part of understanding the alchemical wedding. So green language is a balanced frequency that allows the student to see and hear phonetically, acronymically, allegorically, symbolically, anagrammatically, etymologically, and of course, more importantly, it allows one to see and hear morally. So morality is at the heart of green language. It's a universal tongue where all language potentially meets in the middle for a higher understanding and communication. So it's a correspondence. And that's the communication. The correspondence, when we really start to master this principle, we will understand that it is the communication from the microcosm to the macrocosm and vice versa. Okay? So when we think about the heart and the word heart is something we listen to, right? It beats. It has rhythm. It's like music. We listen and flow and vibrate to this beat every second that we're alive, right? And we listen with our ear, right? I mean, we literally, generally speaking, we listen with our ear, right? Well, we can also listen with our heart, right? Now, what word is right in the middle of the word heart? It's ear, right? Because spiritually, we listen from the middle. We listen with balance. And when we're out of balance and not listening with the heart, then we're not truly listening. So that's really, really important to understand, because as we balance ourselves in the mind, and we know that heart and mind are connected, then we're listening with the ear of the heart, because we're listening from a place of balance. So that's what it really means to listen from the heart or with the heart. So we use our physical sense of hearing and we use our spiritual sense of hearing or listening. And this is a major part of understanding our emotion, right? And our emotion is connected with the heart. So as we listen with our heart and listen to our heart, then we are able to control our emotions. A lot easier anyway, right? We are able to put our emotions in check. It's about the plum rule. We have to be able to plum rule our emotions, to not let our emotions get the best of us. That's how we grow. I tell people all the time that I truly want to know where I'm wrong about things. I want to know where I'm wrong on this journey, especially in regards to what I speak, because I don't want to be wrong, but I want to know where I'm wrong because I want to grow. And when I want people to tell me when I'm wrong, of course, that's only if they know and are being honest in how they explain how and why I'm wrong. Okay? I'm not open to people just telling me I'm wrong about something and can't explain why I'm wrong, because there's not going to be any growth that takes place there. Okay? There's not going to be any real retrospect. There's not going to be no real growth. But I'm always open. And, it's interesting that the three hardest words for people to say is, I was wrong. And I know so many people, if not, I would say most people I know cannot say I was wrong about anything. Their pride and ego will not allow them to say those three words. When I know for a fact that they are wrong about something and I can explain and demonstrate how and why they are wrong, not because I want to be right, but just because if they are saying something that I know to be untrue, especially something in regards to of importance in this world, then I'm going to call it out. And it takes great rulership over the ego and emotions to behave this way, to be able to say I was wrong. And as much as it hurts to know when I'm wrong about something, I recognize that it will only help me grow as an individual. And that's really true in all of us. If we give it that chance, if we find a way to override our pride and ego of just trying to be right. That's why if we are part of a groupthink mentality where the majority agree on something that is actually wrong, and we're part of that group, we're not individually ever going to grow if we're always just going with what the group says is right or what they say is wrong, and it's the opposite. So we have to understand this is about self-rulership. This is about being the authority of the self and thinking critically for the self and being honest, especially with the self, because without honesty, we're never going to grow. Honesty hurts, but it's where growth takes place. It's what makes us a better person. And I want to further what I'm saying here. I want to say something very critical that really has just about everything to do with this second degree, which is being able to take extreme criticism and not have an emotional egoic response as a result of what is being said or shown and right in front of us. Okay? Now, what I want you to do here is pay attention to your inner response to what I'm about to say. So really, really pay attention to how you respond in this next part, okay? So an example would be like someone telling you that anyone who does not understand and talk about morality while claiming to be an anarchist is a full-on retard. Now, to many of you who are listening, that may sound very harsh. And I'm sure to a few of you that may sound pretty spot on. But the point is being able to listen to the underlying message aside from the harshness of how it was said, how I said it, to be able to do that without having an emotional response, whether you believe that statement to be true or not, because it's about realizing that if we put all of our attention on the who said what or how they said it, then we miss the message. We miss the point. And this could be really bad if the message is powerful and beneficial. Now, I'm not saying that it's necessarily a good idea to name call or speak harshly or with vulgarity when delivering a meaningful or truthful message, but we have to recognize the message first before its delivery, right? That's vital to understand. And I always say that anybody who is speaking reality and sounds harsh or condescending, they're not wasting their time just to sound mean and condescending, okay? I mean, I get that there's, some narcissistic psychopaths out there saying some real things, but even then, pay attention to their intent and what is being said. That's what's important. We have to pay attention to, yes, we do have to pay attention to who is saying what and how they are saying it. Sure, that is important. But what's the most important is the message. That's why there's the saying, don't kill the messenger. So if you can master not killing the messenger, then you're mastering your emotion. You're mastering your emotional response, because it's about understanding that the message is the most important thing that you could receive, that anyone could really take in and try to understand what is being said rather than who and how. So we have to rule our emotions to be able to receive the messages. That's what this degree is all about. It's about mastering our emotions. And this is part of understanding the art of green language. And many people have a conditioned emotional response who are not ready to hear the messages revealed by those who speak of what's found using this spiritual tool. And I remember back in the day when I was looking into the world of the occult and being very resistant to green language when I first heard it being used. And I would want to, just quit listening to the person who was trying to convey the message and just completely throw it out. And luckily, I quickly overpowered my emotional inner response to this art, to this language. And I was able to really push myself to look deeper into it before throwing it all out. And even then, I would look so far into so many words that I thought were part of understanding green language. And then I thought maybe I'm just looking too deep into these words and into other things. And even then, even when I was feeling that I was overlooking things, I realized I was having an emotional, social mind control response within myself to just trying to run away from truth, which is what most people do. But it was because I didn't realize the importance of knowledge and the understanding of morality at the time. So the knowledge of natural law and morality is so important when listening for green language. So if you don't have the knowledge of natural law or the knowledge of morality, then it is almost, I would say it's impossible to really discover green language. Because green language really is a moral principle. It's a balanced principle. And this art of light, green language, because that's what it is, it's the art of light. It's very versatile. It's not just a phonetic correlation. It's very layered, and it's the tool used to help the student realize the middle path, which is where truth is found. And the more that the student uses this tool, then the more the student will reveal so much that just can't be found in books. It's not something that can be found in the common vernacular. Okay? Now remember, the path towards truth isn't really a straight path. It's an unfoldment. Now look at the word unfoldment. It means the gradual development or revelation of something, right? And to unfold something is to open it, right? And the compound word ment is Latin for mind. So it means an unfoldment of mind or an opening mind. So we think about what the definition of the word tells us, right? And then we listen to the phonetic message. Then we look at its etymology. And then we're able to come to an intelligent conclusion of what the word is really saying. So it's about getting an eclectic idea or view of each word, especially a word whose definition has something to do with morality. And then, of course, unfoldment is part of understanding morality because it's about openness and growth and evolution. And that's part of being moral. Because as we become moral, we are putting into the universe growth. We are harmonizing. Growth takes place when we harmonize with nature, not when we go against nature. That's where we stagnate. We stagnate when we go against nature, when we are causing disharmony, right? So when it comes to understanding green language, it's important to note that pattern recognition is part of understanding the process of language acquisition, which is about gaining the ability to understand how certain words and letters can speak beyond the literacy of what's taught about that word, okay? It goes beyond the appeal to authority. And this is where the higher imagination comes in, because we have to be able to see beyond. And obviously, we have to have knowledge to be able to see beyond, to be able to stand on the logic of the knowledge to see beyond, because it's also about intuiting. And green language can help us get to those parts that go beyond the words, beyond the logic of the words. And I truly believe it's healthy to exercise this tool freely, okay? I believe that it is okay to look at every word and entertain the idea that maybe it is saying something very important.
All right, it's a great spot to take a break. It's starting to get loud out there. People are starting to bust out some fireworks, so I guess it's time to upload it, and we'll keep grinding this tomorrow when it settles down. Thank you if you made it this far. This is quite the grind. These last couple episodes are very dense, like I said. It's very important to listen to these episodes with the slides whenever you get the time, of course. And if you want to support the channel, use code BeagleEyeVision at w.gg, and you can get 10% off your purchase. All right. Thank you if you made it this far. Stay tuned and stay golden.